A boy named Karna faced a legendary earth dragon. He was tasked with collecting its eyes. The winged monster mocked his weakness, declaring it would show Karna the true power of the great Dragon King. As it swung its claws, a devastating blow cracked the very ground. It laughed at Karna's fragility, proclaiming that its time had come to reclaim the earth. But it turned back in shock as the dust settled, seeing the boy unharmed, surrounded by spirits blocking its arm. It watched in horror as its own arm began to rot and disintegrate, before finally falling off. It roared in agony and confusion. Karna stared in disbelief at his own power, amazed that with just one arm he could inflict so much damage. He wondered if he could even control this power. Then he raised his hand toward the dragon, unleashing the power of the wind with its full might. The creature shrieked as the magic enveloped it, causing its entire body to begin to decay, making it crumble and collapse into a pile of dust on the ground. The attack was so powerful that it obliterated the monster's eyes, causing Karna to fail his quest and lose the reward. Karna then looked at the mark on the back of his hand. The mark bestowed upon him by the heavens, signifying his profession as a sage with the skill of necromancy. Although initially thrilled to have a powerful profession, Karna lamented that his overwhelming magical power had disintegrated the quest materials. He realized that controlling his power when holding back was easy, but fine-tuning it against high-reward monsters without overdoing it was difficult. Karna wondered if he should just take an easy, low-reward quest like killing goblins or slimes, but he quickly realized that with such low-paying quests, he couldn't send money to his grandparents. Karna began to search the dragon's remains for anything useful, while recalling that he was supposed to have been hired by a hero party, and wondered how he had ended up in this situation. In a flashback to 1 month before the battle, Karna had just turned 13. His grandfather praised him for receiving the title of sage, while his grandmother cheerfully said that such a powerful child wouldn't fit in their small village. The boy was overjoyed, hoping to become a great sage and earn lots of money to make his grandparents rich. They told him not to worry about that as they were old and would be happy as long as he was healthy, but Karna's determination was unwavering. He remembered how his grandparents had taken him in when he lost his parents years ago, and had raised him, hoping to one day repay the kindness they had shown him, which brought them to tears. His grandparents hugged him tightly, crying, until he heard a knock at the door. He stepped outside. When Karna opened the door, he was met by a party of heroes who had been searching for him. Here, a person is recognized as an adult when they turn 13 and receive an inscription through an enlightenment ceremony, revealing their profession and skills. Those with similar traits form parties to maximize their strength. Those who receive inscriptions like Holy Knight, Master Warrior, or Sage are called gold holders and are registered in the guild system. Being an adventurer allows one to take on quests for money or be recruited by a legendary hero party on a mission to defeat demon kings. The party leader read Karna's registration information aloud, believing his skills would be useful against high-level demons. Karna tried to refuse, saying he didn't think it would work out, and was terrified at the thought of fighting the demon king. But in an instant, he changed his mind, when the hero reassures him and promises that he will earn huge sums of money. Saying goodbye to his grandparents, he gets the chance to travel with the hero's party. As a member, they soon face a powerful ogre, requiring Karna to show his strength. The boy uses death bullets, defeating the creature with spirits, leaving the party stunned. Later, when overwhelmed and surrounded by monsters, Karna suggests summoning their own allies and orders some undead to rise and fight the monsters. When a creature attacks the hero, Karna launches mud bullets at it, causing its flesh to melt. Karna controls his grandfather's spirit along with animal spirits to achieve victory, and he thinks everything is going smoothly. But the hero surprisingly politely asks him to leave the party. The surprised boy asks if he wasn't helpful, while the hero tries to keep the peace. However, the party's battlemaster bluntly says that he's disrupting the team's coordination and that his skills are disgusting. In fact, she hates being useless in battle and accuses him of preventing her from attacking, trying to steal her spotlight. Although he points out that she could have attacked normally, she insists that she didn't want to fight a mud-covered monster with her bare hands. She turns to the other girl for support, and that person calls his magic psychologically unbearable. The hero tries to console Karna, but explains that since he's only been with them for a month and his trial period isn't over, the kingdom won't pay him. Desperate to keep the job and send money to his grandparents, he offers to stop using necromancy, but the hero notes that they only hired him for his necromancy and didn't expect him to use such unpleasant spells. The other two girls also support that view. Karna quickly assesses the situation and realizes that the battlemaster wants him gone because she's afraid of becoming useless. The Holy Knight supports her because his magic is unpleasant, and she might be worried about his necromancy, while the hero just wants to keep the pretty girls around. With no other choice, Karna bows, thanks them for everything, and turns to leave. The hero calls out to him and apologizes for everything, handing him a small pouch with 500 gold. He says goodbye, stating that they'll still be friends, before leaving with the party. The boy is now left alone and jobless, and as he walks down the road, Karna starts to compare his situation to a story about the exile of heroes, believing that good things will come to him from now on. Cheerfully, he heads to the royal capital to change his job. In the capital, Karna tries to find a party to join, but the adventurers there refuse to hire him because of his bad reputation for leaving the hero's party in just 1 month. Shunned, the disheartened boy left the capital and was forced to become a solo adventurer. Back in the present, Karna knelt before the dragon's corpse and wondered what he should do from now on. His spirits, worried about his well-being, offered to find him something to eat since he was hungry. However, he doubted they could find any food here. Karna reasoned that there might be more treasure chests and other dragons in the cave, so he ordered them to search for food and used a spirit-finding spell to send them off. Grandpa didn't join them, saying he was too old to be running around like that, making Karna remark that he was just a normal old man. After some searching, one of the spirits found an empty treasure chest, while another stumbled upon the corpse of an adventurer. However, given how much time had passed, Karna figured the water he was carrying must have gone bad. However, the third spirit stopped before a pair of giant gates marking the entrance to a large, ominous castle. It declared that it couldn't go any further. Karna believed this meant the castle was protected by a powerful barrier, and he headed towards it, excited by the possibility of finding valuable treasure inside. He confirmed the presence of a strong barrier and used the power of necromancy to dispel it. As he used this magic, the barrier began to shake and crack before completely shattering. While the iron gates were blown open, Karna noticed that the barrier had weakened after 200 years, which made it easier to extinguish with force. But before he could enter the castle, he was stopped by a group of 3 flying demons, blocking his path. They landed in front of him, and as their leader asked the reason for his presence, he noted that Karna's mark was from an outer god, and his human-like appearance suggested he was very powerful. The demon was surprised to learn he had destroyed the barrier, explaining that the castle belonged to Cecilia Isla Firisu, one of the 7 demon lords. The boy asked in surprise why a demon castle was in a place where one could normally accept quests, and the demon wondered how he couldn't have known about it. Before dismissing it all and summoning the power of lightning, preparing to fight the intruder, as a loyal servant of Cecilia, his comrades remarked that Karna was truly unlucky to have been found by their leader, who was called Belphegor. They noted that he possessed the lightning of despair, granted by the ancient god Nodens, which could instantly boil the blood of others. The demon launched a bolt of lightning at Karna, causing a powerful explosion. Belphegor commented on how trivial the matter was, until the dust settled, revealing Grandpa in his human form, holding a lightning trident in his hand, declaring that he wouldn't be harmed by such a weak spell, and that he would not allow any harm to come to his master. The demon stared in disbelief, wondering why the ancient god Nodens would obey a human. The boy asked the spirit if that was his name, and he noted that he had yet to introduce himself. Turning to Belphegor, Nodens prepared to show him the lightning of despair, asking Karna to lend him some magic. The boy agreed, touched him, causing the trident to glow with power, while the demon watched in horror. Nodens then unleashed a storm of lightning, roasting him and leaving his 2 subordinates badly injured and terrified to see the god defeat one of their strongest demons. They turned to flee until their mistress Cecilia appeared with a smile. The demon Lord of Lust congratulated Karna for showing her something interesting and asked for his name. She then invited him to serve under her, praising his fighting style and saying there was something in him that she wanted. However, the boy bowed his head and told her to stop, noting that necromancy was an unpleasant magic, which got him kicked out of the hero's party. She just smiled, saying there was nothing wrong with his skills, and declared necromancy to be the greatest magic in the world, asking him to show her more. Karna hesitated at the thought of betraying humanity, but Cecilia caressed his cheek and, more importantly, offered a salary of 20 million gold per year. He happily accepted. Cecilia's underworld domain is L.A. Rural, one of the 7 demon lords who received power from a god and descended from the great demon king. Inside, Karna was led by Cecilia. He wore a new demon mask to hide the fact that he was human. The other demons whispered about him, discussing his recent victory and how he was always followed by Nodens. making the spirit realize Karna's fame. He explained that he had died thousands of years ago, and thus didn't know they had started to worship him. The pig demon noted that the boy smelled human and wondered if he was actually a human. But one of his comrades quickly cut him off, stressing that their lady had declared him her follower, and that no one who looked like that could be human. Even though Cecilia had already announced him, he still feared being found out, so he decided to act like a demon to avoid being caught. And with this, he could support his grandparents. Finally, they reached the demon lord's room, and Cecilia told him he could take off his mask as she led him inside, declaring that this room was his workplace. Karna saw the mess in the room and was surprised, looking at Cecilia. As she turned her face away, he realized that she didn't know how to clean. Embarrassed, the demon queen asked him not to tell anyone and explained that the more she cleaned, the messier it got. She had hired him as her servant. Karna agreed, keeping the high salary in mind, but wondered why she didn't choose a servant from among the demons she already had. Cecilia flatly refused, insisting that only he could do the job. She said that after he finished cleaning that evening, he could use the castle's facilities. Cecilia left, leaving the bewildered boy to his task. Although he didn't understand her intentions, Karna was eager to start and was determined to complete every task she gave him. He headed to the castle's vast library and explained to Nodence that he wasn't familiar with demon aesthetics, asking for his help with research. He then sent the other 3 spirits to search for books. Using their mana sensing abilities, Karna received the knowledge they gathered through a psychic link. He wanted to gather information on creating the ideal bedroom for his queen, while also learning about demon culture. The old spirit watched the boy, wondering how long it would take him to skim through everything. But he immediately declared that he was done, and had memorized it all, thanking the spirits for their help, while the old spirit looked at him with admiration. Karna noted that although the spirits helped him read, it was meaningless if he couldn't absorb it all. He complimented himself on his talent, now armed with this new knowledge, and ordered the spirits to go clean according to their preferences. 2 hours later, Cecilia was pleased with the clean state of the room. She praised their efforts and thanked them. She pointed to a pair of growling chests and explained that they contained pieces of cursed armor and demonic books. While the spirits trembled, recalling how they handled them, the demon queen smiled. She said that Karna's work had exceeded her expectations, and she was very happy he was here. The boy blushed, saying he was glad he could finally be of help to someone, even if she was a demon. He then told her about a book he was interested in. He ordered the spirits to grab a few volumes from the bookshelf, and noted that they were all written by humans. Seeing the number of human books, he asked Cecilia why she had so many. The question made her blush, and Cecilia relaxed in the bath. Karna stood outside his back to Cecilia, holding a towel. The old man looked at him with a knowing glint in his eye. The embarrassed boy silently blamed the spirit for this. As Cecilia turned off the water, she answered his earlier question, admitting she was interested in humans, and that it was why she studied their lives and culture, like love and marriage. He blushed, realizing that was why there were so many romance novels in her library, which left her surprised and embarrassed. She opened the glass bathroom door and stepped out, startling Karna, and coldly asked if he had read her books, even though they were carefully disguised. Embarrassed, he apologized, explaining that he didn't know the contents were different from the covers, and that the spirits had read them while he was cleaning. Cecilia grabbed a towel and wrapped it around her body, blushing as she called him a naughty boy, and seductively approached him from behind, demanding he reveal his secrets. The paralyzed boy agreed to tell her everything, and she whispered, asking him to tell her about the god who looked after him, as well as where and how they had happily made their contract. Karna explained that Grandpa Nodance and the other spirits were neighbors of his grandparents. To Cecilia's surprise, he explained that when he first became a dark mage, he had wanted to cleanse the cursed land next to his grandparents' farm. He told her that a shady company had sold his grandfather that dangerous plot of land. Although dark magic can't cleanse without holy power, it allows the user to communicate with spirits and soothe them. He had gone to the wasteland and used his power, causing him to fall into a sinkhole when the ground beneath him cracked. Karna cushioned his fall with a layer of slime and found himself deep inside a cave, facing a giant dungeon shaped like a pyramid when seen from above. Nodence appeared behind him, staring at him. He told Cecilia he was surprised to discover a dungeon next to his grandparents' house. Nodence expressed a surprise that a young boy could break the seal. This was before he met the other spirits, and once he got acquainted with Grandpa, they made a contract. The ancient god remarked that the boy would sometimes show up unexpectedly to learn magic, describing him as the son of someone who had heard of magic but never learned about it. Cecilia was amazed that the tomb of an ancient god erased from history was in such a place. He was one of the ancient gods who granted power to the 7 demon lords, but lost his physical body after humans betrayed him. According to legend, his spirit was sealed in a tomb somewhere, but its location was erased from all lore and written records, so no one knew where to look. When the land was eventually sold to Karna's family as a cursed plot, Cecilia noted that to free Nodens, he would have had to break a dangerous and powerful seal, meaning there was more to the boy than she expected. He looked at her and asked if she would catch a cold. But she replied that there was no way that could happen. She decided to assign him all the housework, noting that there were many more rooms to clean. He promised to get right on it and called upon the spirits to help. Seeing how reliable he was, she offered him another job with a reward of a nice room and an annual salary of up to 5 million gold. Karna trembled at the prospect as the spirits swirled around him. He frantically raised his hand and declared that he would do it. At the LA Rural Underground Palace, Cecilia was fast asleep. Karna entered her room, wearing his demon mask, and wished her a good morning. She woke up, revealing her scantily clad body, and greeted him back. The flustered boy replied, thanking her for letting him use the sofa to rest while thinking about how comfortable it was. Last night, he recalled with embarrassment how the demon lord had asked if he wanted to sleep with her. He had angrily shouted that it was impossible since he wouldn't know where to look, making Grandpa wonder if he had spoiled the boy. Karna cheerfully declared that he was happy with the sofa and blanket, remembering the cold days after being kicked out of his party. As he rested, he thought about Cecilia's pleasant scent, soft and warm. Back in the present, Cecilia asked him if the cushion was too hard. He reassured her and thanked her for her generosity, promising to repay her someday. She smiled and then asked if he could start working for her right away. She rang a bell, signaling for a demon to enter, and served them both breakfast. Cecilia told him his first task was to have breakfast together, telling him to take off his helmet since they were alone. He agreed, wondering if he was even allowed to eat this food, and she replied that she had asked the chef to prepare a human meal. He thanked Cecilia and was about to ask about her breakfast, but then noticed strange images emerging from it. He remembered that the Devil's Book mentioned that demons eat food to absorb magical power instead of nutrients. Cecilia cheerfully scooped up a spoonful of the strange soup and ate it. She noticed him staring and said shyly that the soup probably looked awful to humans, but the boy cheerfully asked if he could try some. Surprised, she agreed, scooping up a spoonful and feeding it to him. Although Grandpa and the spirits were worried, he found it delicious. Cecilia was overjoyed by this, while Grandpa wondered how he could enjoy it, remarking that demon food has few nutrients and a bland taste, even suggesting that eating garbage would be better. Cecilia became sad and explained that they had been trying to improve the taste for years, but no matter how much she ate, she could never make it taste like human food. Karna smiled, declaring that it wasn't bad at all, and asked if he could have some more. Cecilia trembled with happiness and suggested that they share the bowl of soup together, much to the spirit's surprise. After they finished eating, Cecilia moved on to the topic of the day. She took a cup of tea and began telling him about the demon he would be targeting. Cecilia told Karna about the demon generals, who formed the backbone of the Demon King's army, served the demon lord, and were granted territory and troops to command under the Demon King. She explained that demons aren't just assigned roles based on their rank. They have to demonstrate power and achievements to even be considered a leader in the Demon King's army, let alone become a general. As a reward, she revealed that if he became a general, his pay would double or even triple. Karna immediately jumped at the chance for the sake of his grandparents. Delighted to hear this, Cecilia planned to start by expanding their territory. Karna suggested they include his grandparents' farm within their territory with his grandpa's help, noting that many of his friends would have grown up by then. Cecilia replied that her subordinates would flee since the house was inside the human kingdom. When he suggested she attack after he became a general, she said she wasn't good at that sort of thing, being just an ordinary demon lord. She stood up, suggesting they go out and have some fun, refusing to reveal their destination. They arrived at a location unknown to Karna, at an ogre base inside a demon dungeon. Here, a giant monster was facing a group of human soldiers, striking them down with its hammer. It had attacked the nearby human city and devoured its inhabitants. The subjugation force sent to deal with it had suffered constant raids and was on the verge of annihilation. The soldiers were beginning to lose heart, but their commander rallied their spirits, reassuring them that a hero would come and fight alongside them, raising her sword to the sky. Seeing this, the ogre charged forward and punched her in the chest, sending her flying into the rocks, declaring that he would break her like a horse and then devour her. He then tore off her armor, grabbed her by the hair, and prepared to eat her, while telling her to just give up. Before he could finish her off, he was hit by a shot from Karna as the boy appeared, telling the stunned girl to get back. When she asked who he was, seeing the mask, she mistook him for a monster. Karna summoned numerous spirits, lifting him off the ground, and declared himself an enemy of humanity who had come to this dungeon in peace. Karna announced his intention to take over this dungeon as an enemy of humanity, but the ogre sneered at his arrogance and told him he was in its lair. The knight was surprised to see the creature still alive. But as he stood up, leaning on his iron hammer, he declared that he was no ordinary ogre. He told the boy that he was Barris, leader of the Ogre War Corps, serving under the Demon King of Greed, Lord Gudagaz. He then activated his mark, and his muscles bulged as he revealed it to be the Mark of the Blessed, declaring that if he could beat a dragon to death with his bare hands, he would have no trouble dealing with him. The knight stood there, amazed by such a powerful form, and Karna realized that the Mark of the Blessed was granted by the ancient gods that demons worshipped, and was comparable to the power given to humanity during the enlightening sacrifice. He also deduced that this ogre must have the power of a hero, and only another hero could stand against him. Assessing the Ogre Lord's strength, he believed he could be a formidable opponent due to his enhancements and immense muscle mass. Believing he had scared him speechless, the ogre prepared to destroy Karna and raised its hammer. But he stood his ground and took out a lamp, opening it, and released the fire spirit within. Activating his mark, Karna fused the spirit into his fist and absorbed a direct hit from the ogre's hammer, remaining completely unharmed. Both the ogre and the knight looked on, astonished at this seemingly impossible feat. And as the creature retracted its hammer, the fire spear reminded Karna to be more confident and not be intimidated by the ogre's muscles. It warned that the ogre was not at full power, and that the next blow would likely be much stronger. The monster confirmed this, telling Karna that he was chosen to die and asserting that he would not be stopped this time. As the ogre gripped its hammer with both hands, the spear told Karna that they would go all out and taunted the ogre. The ogre unleashed a powerful attack, causing the ground to shatter. Sending large fragments flying toward him, Karna used his power, commanding the spear to vaporize the ground and form, delivering the hammer of fire as a counterattack. The blow landed and the fireball headed toward the ogre, leaving him in disbelief as it incinerated him, creating a massive hole straight through the entire mountain. As the dust settled, Karna wondered if the ogre was gone, but the spear said he'd been torn to pieces and that the attack was truly overkill. Karna doubted that defeating one of the 7 great demon generals would be so easy. He hovered around looking for the knight. The knight was hiding behind a rock, trembling in fear at the dark, demonic power she had just witnessed. When one of her subordinates asked what they should do, she panicked and told them to retreat to inform the heroes of the new situation. A new demon general, or perhaps even a demon king, had just appeared. The exorcist forces fled in a panic, while the fire spirit looked on, confused, asking Karna if everything was all right, but he told it to be quiet, as they needed to search for the hidden demon. Karna sensed 3 souls in the distance using his soul detection spell, and they swept the entire dungeon. Before reporting that they couldn't find anyone, Karna found this strange, pointing out that high-level demons should be descendants of No Dance and Vor. The fire spirit noted that perhaps he wasn't blessed. Karna thought that the demon generals had to be as strong as Nodens and shouldn't be defeated with just one punch, noting that not even his grandfather was that weak. In a flashback, he recalled the first time he met No Dance at the tomb beneath his grandparents' farm. Karna asked the old man who he was, and he introduced himself as the divine spirit residing in the cemetery, surrounded by other powerful souls. He asked if the boy believed he could control their souls, demanding that he show his strength, before attacking with the purple lightning of despair. Karna realized he had to complete a trial for them to become his spirits. He used a slime cushion to try and block the attack, but it failed and he was electrocuted. The fire spirit laughed and unleashed a fire hammer on him, but he shot slime bullets at the fireball, causing it to explode prematurely and sending him flying. Nodens mused that no one had ever been able to withstand the skills of the ancient gods like that. It had been a long time since he'd seen a human with such high potential. The injured boy got back up, his tattered body and clothes smoking from the attacks. When the god noticed he was still standing, Karna's expression turned serious, making the old god smile and praise his excellent eyes. Back in the present, Karna noted that, as his grandfather's descendants, the demon generals should be as strong as him. He declared that the demon general must have escaped. The fire spirit then said it would return to its lamp to stop draining Karna's power, reminding him to be careful. He thanked it and promised to call on it if he encountered an enemy, happily opening the lamp so the spirit could rest. He took off his mask and sighed, before hearing Cecilia's footsteps approaching. He turned to see the Demon Queen. Apologizing that her enemy had escaped, the Demon Queen smiled. Realizing that the fire hammer was the embodiment of fire and power from Vorvados, the cursed ancient god, manifesting in his fist and vaporizing the entire area in its path, it was the first time she had seen it in person. Cecilia then turned to the disappointed boy, gently scolding him for letting her enemy get away, while patting his head. To herself, she noted that the enemy might have actually been vaporized, wondering just how powerful this boy really was. Feeling nervous, Cecilia told Karna not to worry, and handed him a stone that looked like a precious gem. She explained that it was a core, proof of ownership of the dungeon, and that it was easy to obtain since the boss had been defeated. She then handed the core and the dungeon over to him, telling him to do as he pleased and to consider it his home. The boy was overjoyed by this, and asked the spirits what he should do with his new home. While Cecilia smiled from a distance, that evening the hero's party received a new extermination quest at the Royal Guild. The staff member there announced that they would be facing a formidable opponent that only a hero could defeat. He bowed his head, begging the hero to accept the quest. As he looked at the wanted poster, which had a similar image of Karna with his demon helmet, he noted the boy's impressive power, having defeated a demon general with just a single blow. However, he also noted that thanks to Karna, the party's holy knight had learned some resurrection magic, deciding it was time to challenge stronger foes. Smiling brightly, they suggested finding someone to help them defeat the demon. In a world ruled by swordsmanship, magic, and enlightenment, demons, who originated from ancient gods alongside humans who fought against them and claimed the continents, continue their fight to this day. Since demons live on the magical energy within souls, underground labyrinths are like farms, luring adventurers with the promise of treasure, then absorbing their souls into the dungeon core, creating a magical fluid that nourishes the demons. At the border between the human and demon realms, a new dungeon was about to be created by Karna. The boy held the dungeon core in his hands, took a deep breath. Before activating it, the ground began to crack, as shapes started to appear and form a modest burial mound. Cecilia wondered if it was big enough for him, and Karna explained that it was the only way he could use his necromancy's creation magic. He preferred comfort over style. He happily led her inside, lighting the way with his spirit lantern, as he showed her the newly created furniture, and hugged a talking pillow. He invited her to sit on it, and the girl happily accepted, remarking that his room was at the center of the dungeon, and asked for permission to play with it a little. As Karna handed her the dungeon core, she joked that there would be no one to protect or take care of him while he was busy, activating it, and created a magic circle that connected his room directly to hers. He wondered if that was okay, pointing out that he would also have access to her room, but she just gave him a mischievous wink and teased him, making him feel embarrassed. He looked at the gate, realizing that even if they were in the same dungeon, opening a portal like that was incredibly high-level magic. Although he might think of her as a kind older sister, she was still a powerful demon lord. Cecilia cheerfully returned the core to Karna, telling him that he would be able to use all the creation magic within his territory and shape the land as he pleased. She explained that demons use the magical energy in the land to create their own dungeons. When the core is found and destroyed, the magical energy is released and returns to the land, creating rich farmland, mines, and other resources. Therefore, dungeons are often prime targets for humanity in their search for treasure and materials from monsters. He pointed out that the more they take, the more land humanity can claim, suggesting they should maintain a defensive position. Karna happily asked his spirits for help. The next day, the hero's party faced an ogre. The hero proudly sliced it in two, declaring that they were getting closer to the dungeon. The hero's party continued to advance, fighting the ogres that appeared along the way, with the hero himself slicing one monster in half, while the battle master took down a second one with a single punch. The man cheered the group on, saying they only had a short way to go and encouraging everyone to keep up the pace. However, he was completely unaware that an ogre was charging up behind him. The monster snarled, preparing to smash him with its club, but the holy knight, who jumped in and absorbed the full force of the attack with her shield, saved him. He thanked her. He launched a valiant counterattack, ending the monster's life. But the holy knight fell to her knees, clutching her injured arm. The battlemaster criticized her for acting so recklessly as a shield for the hero, even saying that Karna with his zombie attacks would have been better. However, she angrily retorted that she only did it because the hero always rushes in without thinking, The hero intervened, trying to calm the situation, pointing out that they had won, and the fact that they were standing outside the ogre's dungeon meant the story about the War Demon Tribe's dungeon being stolen by another demon had to be true. She insisted that it could be considered a strategy. While the two women were still annoyed, a third female member of the party appeared, asking the Battlemaster, whose name was Hiraki, if she trusted her information. The Battlemaster angrily replied that her information about the necromancer was useless, though she couldn't have known that since she'd been out in the field gathering intel until the day before. The woman replied that she believed a wise necromancer who held a gold mark would be a great asset for both offense and defense. However, the Holy Knight cut in, shouting that she would never have agreed if she had known Karna used filthy undead. The woman then called them naive, causing them to react angrily. While the hero tried to calm the situation, the woman asks why they didn't keep Karna around until she returned. The hero justifies that although Karna was a perfect asset, his presence would leave the hero with nothing to do, so the decision to kick him out was for political reasons. She looks at him with a tired expression, thinking to herself that he's an attention seeker and revealing his name as Norris Palacios. Hiraki says that she had to join the party because he is a brave man with the talent of purification, meant to strengthen the previous hero's abilities and enlightenment. However, everyone in the party are attention seekers, chosen for their looks and talents, and often complain selfishly. Furthermore, she's disappointed to have missed her chance to meet Karna and laments that she has become a babysitter for all these people. Hiraki urges her to talk about the next dungeon, but she points out that it was Norris who accepted the quest without consulting her, and that there's no information about it, other than it being in the ogre's dungeon. The female knight then criticizes her, suggesting she should go and scout the location, claiming she has neglected her duties while still getting paid as one of the hero's companions. Norris counters that she's doing a great job, but the woman points out that entering a dungeon without any information is a suicide mission, and they know nothing about the demons that have occupied it. Hiraki calls her arrogant for arguing with the hero, but the woman stands her ground, stressing the danger of not being aware of the reality of the situation. Norris pays this no mind, asserting that they are much stronger than before. The hero cheerfully agrees, seeing the dungeon as a good opportunity to see how much they've improved over the past few days, and urges the party to move on. 30 minutes later, the party arrives at the edge of the dungeon, and the woman feels a sense of dread as she notices the atmosphere has changed when they see the dungeon has a graveyard theme. She notes that this was supposed to be an ogre base, but Norris ignores her and recklessly enters the crypt, urging the group to follow, despite the woman's warnings against it. Meanwhile, their movements are being watched by Karna's spirits, who proceed to raise the alarm. A spirit warns Karna and Cecilia about the intruders, and the boy thanks it for the information, admitting he never thought the hero's party would come here, noting the strange connection he has with them. He wonders why the boy feels unhappy after how unjustly they treated him, suggesting it wouldn't hurt to at least get revenge for their actions. This strikes a chord with the boy, who realizes that even though they were once comrades, he owes them nothing, transforming into their enemy and becoming more serious. The boy decides that this intrusion cannot be tolerated, but he will still go easy on them for now, accepting the fact that they will likely die, as he now serves under the Demon Lord as an enemy of humanity. Karna rises from his coffin bed and holds the dungeon core in his hand. He summons Kuon's graveyard to deploy an army of the undead to stop the hero's party, thus fulfilling the eternal contract. Immediately, hordes of undead emerge from the graveyard and march forward, crossing the cemetery grounds. Karna watches them through the dungeon core, which transmits what the spirits see from the battlefield, allowing him to monitor the party's progress. Cecilia approaches him, calling the place an intimate and solemn space. And although the boy shyly admits he didn't have time for an elaborate design, he excitedly remarks that it's more than enough. He notes that the dungeon's design is like a seal where spirits are imprisoned, with mythical magic crystals that are a legacy of the ancient world, and guardians that could lock away even the ancient gods. Looking at the monitor, he observes that the dungeon Karna has built will be unbreakable. The undead surround the hero's party. Hiraki refuses to fight them, claiming they're disgusting, and tells the hero to take care of the mission after they've been destroyed. They're surrounded by a horde of angry ghouls, and Norris orders the Holy Knight to make them disappear with magic. She used her power, but the ghosts just mocked her efforts before rushing in and phasing into her breastplate. The hero yelled at her, reminding her that she was responsible for the party's magical attacks, and also criticized the Battlemaster, telling her to get it together. Watching from afar in Karna's room, Cecilia was surprised by the weakness of the current era's heroes. Karna explained that they lack the proper methods to fight against ghosts and the undead, as the hero specialized in physical attacks which were incompatible with incorporeal and resurrected beings. Meanwhile, the Holy Knight lacked the faith or support items to enhance her magic. As the other party members cowered, the assassin remained unfazed. She uncorked a bottle, ran up a wall, and performed an acrobatic flip. She doused the ghost with its contents, which was revealed to be holy water. As the ghost began to burn and flee, she finished her pirouette, drawing a silver dagger imbued with holy magic, and stabbed one of the creatures. She was criticized by a party member for her earlier remarks, but Cecilia noted that it wasn't the voice of the person who had just been saved. She praised the assassin for her skill and realized that without her, they would have failed. Cecilia was curious about what they would do next. The assassin told the party to retreat to get away safely, saying the ghost would reveal all their skills to the dungeon boss. The hero dismissed this, insisting they had to do something since they couldn't leave empty-handed. He ignored her when she called him reckless, saying they would win if they landed an effective attack, and that everything would be fine as long as they left with some loot. The assassin stressed that they couldn't just use the holy water blessed with high magic, willy-nilly because it was very expensive, leading Hiraki and the Holy Knight to call her selfish for holding back. She suggested that they should pay for it, deeming the situation not worth the cost. As they continued to argue, Norris intervened and offered to pay for it, asking if she would use it in the next battle. Pausing for a moment, the assassin agreed on the condition that they only use it if forced to retreat. He agreed, asking his teammates if they were on board. But the two women were still at odds, making the assassin see the hopelessness of the mission and decide she would leave the party if they survived. Hidaki promised to talk to her when they returned to town, but she ignored her and dons her cowl as she moved ahead to scout before their retreat. After a while, they approached what looked like an exit, but she felt something was off and realized the distance they had traveled into the dungeon didn't match the distance they had traveled out. Norris and the others didn't seem to notice this, overjoyed at having found a way out, and ran straight for it, declaring that this dungeon was never a match for them. The assassin tried to stop them, warning of a trap, but as several gates slammed down, blocking all the exits, leaving them trapped in a circular room with ghosts hovering overhead. The assassin sensed a rift beginning to form. She threw her silver dagger towards it, but it was deflected by Karna with his staff as he stepped out wearing a cloak and a demon mask. The assassin recoiled in surprise, and Karna addressed the group, announcing that he had come to pay his respects as the lord of the underground dungeon. Looking the hero straight in the eye, Karna prepared to fight the human hero, and VOR whispered through his mind, asking its master if they could handle the hero or if they needed to bring out Nodance. He refused, knowing that if they saw him use No Dance along with the other spirits, he would be discovered and put his family in danger, so he had to fight with all his might. Norris was surprised by Karna's greeting, replying awkwardly before shouting at him that he shouldn't speak like a human. The assassin told him to calm down, pointing out what had happened to the dagger she had thrown. When the battlemaster called it a shiny knife, she corrected him, saying the silver dagger was designed to pierce any barrier and could harm demons, warning that it had been stopped by pure force. She reminded everyone not to let their guard down. She assessed Karna and deduced that although he looked like a child, he had definitely enhanced himself and could be considered a high-level warrior. She advised the others to coordinate and work carefully as a team. But Hiraki disregarded her advice and charged forward alone, believing she could handle the demon by herself. Karna summoned VOR, and the spirit allowed him to use its skills as he pleased. He then used fire armor, making himself immune to all attacks. Meanwhile, Hiraki continued to rush in alone, ignoring the assassin's advice. The hero reassured the assassin, reminding her that Hiraki was a high-level battlemaster who had mastered all weapons and martial arts, to the point that she had become a divine figure in the world of martial arts. The girl prepared to strike, unleashing a supersonic punch at Karna, but he used his fire staff to block all the attacks. Hiraki was stunned by this outcome, terrified by Karna's mask, and ducked down as he unleashed a single fire blast, sending her flying. Norris watched, stunned. The boy was surprised at how easy the fight was, thinking it was a joke that he could take her down even while holding back. He told himself that heroes were supposed to be able to challenge even the gods and be unstoppable. He believed they could do better than that. VOR reminded him not to let his guard down. The Holy Knight then said a prayer before launching an attack, Holy Crusher with her spear. Realizing that Hiraki would be caught in the blast, Karna summoned his army of the dead and raised a wall of corpses, protecting both him and the battlemaster. The attack exploded on impact with the wall, sending dust flying across the battlefield. The Holy Knight rejoiced, thinking she had won, not noticing that she might have hit the Battlemaster, and quickly moved forward to revive her. Meanwhile, Karna stood over the corpse, the assassin warning the Holy Knight not to be so reckless as she charged toward Hiraki. The Holy Knight was stunned to see Karna checking on the Master Warrior. After looking at her, Karna turned and unleashed a disintegration wind. The knight raised her holy shield to block, but the attack was too powerful, causing the shield to corrode and shatter. She was hit by the full force of the attack, causing her armor and clothes to disintegrate. Before the assassin could rush in and pull her out of the line of fire, the girl trembled uncontrollably, terrified and ashamed of being completely naked, and wet herself before fainting. The assassin cursed her for being useless, wondering how to counter the mist's negative effects without the Holy Knight, while also realizing that the demon was stronger than all of them, and the Master Warrior had been taken hostage. Meanwhile, Karna noticed the hero's furious expression, and VOR remarked that Hiraki would have died if Karna hadn't held back with his weapon. Norris shouted with motivation, glowing with power, while the boy wondered if he was willing to put his comrades in danger. The hero replied that he wasn't, but that they all knew the risks when they joined. He revealed that he'd also learned some resurrection magic, so he didn't care if the Holy Knight died since he could just bring her back. This enraged the boy. Seeing the hero unleash a powerful holy slash, the boy was furious at his willingness to sacrifice a comrade, despite having no reason to help Hiraki. He angrily declared he wouldn't let the hero abandon someone a second time, and fully unleash the power of Orvados. The spirit materialized, launching a fiery punch. As a counterattack, shattering the hero's attack, the fireball flew past Norris, destroying the sphere behind him. Horrified to realize that a shadow demon had countered a hero's strike to stop him from winning, Norris watched as his holy sword snapped in two, causing him to scream in horror. The knight kept screaming in disbelief, especially as his holy armor and equipment also began to crumble, leaving him in nothing but his underwear. He cried out in panic, demanding to know what kind of magic Karna used to destroy his holy sword and equipment. But the assassin cuts him off, insisting that it was entirely his fault. Stepping forward, she performs a special spell, allowing her to see the monster's name, race, and attribute, confirming that Vorvados has a good attribute in this world. Souls are classified by two attributes. Those who protect and show compassion for others are marked as good, while those who prioritize their own interests and happiness are marked as evil. Karna comments on Vor's good attribute, and the ancient god cheerfully declares that he is a spirit who descended to protect his friends and family. He explains that a person can easily switch between these two attributes, as they are determined by one's actions. The assassin tells Norris that a hero can only have the power to destroy evil by acting within the absolute limits of what is considered good, and calls himself selfish for hiding behind his comrades in battle. The hero hastily objects, insisting that he isn't selfish. He explains that he gave Karna money, even though he didn't have to, after Karna was exiled, and says that it doesn't count as abandoning his comrades if he can still help them, right? The assassin sighs, telling him that he doesn't truly believe that in his heart, and points out that his holy sword and equipment have abandoned him, which was made clear through her spell. She tells him to give up, revealing that his attribute is now evil, so he has lost his divine command and now bears the seal of a covenant breaker instead. In this world, those who possess a divine command and have a blessed profession are called the chosen, while those who have lost or never had a divine command are labeled covenant breakers and are often scorned by others. Norris screams in despair, scratching at his face, unable to accept this truth, and asks the assassin why she didn't tell him sooner. She angrily grabs his head, pointing out that he obviously shouldn't have exiled or attacked his own comrade. She declares that he has failed as an adventurer, as a hero, and as a human being, and that not betraying your party members is common sense. Norris sees Karna in the distance and panics, begging the assassin to save him because he doesn't want to die. The woman quickly backs away, preparing to use another vial of holy water, but Karna uses magic to freeze her hand, saying he doesn't want to do anything unreasonable and advises her to stop resisting. She insists that since she was paid, she will keep her promise and fight to the end, drawing a silver knife, and throws it at Karna. Karna easily dodges it, steps on the two spirits, to launch himself into the air, and quickly closes in on her, getting behind her to knock her out with his staff. The woman falls to the ground, and as the former hero tries to crawl away, he is pinned to the ground by Cecilia. She is disappointed by the hero's current state, and when the man angrily asks who she is, she introduces herself as the Demon Lord of the Lost. Cecilia continues to hold the former hero down, affirming that she is indeed the one humans call the Demon Lord. Karna approaches, apologizing for almost letting him escape, but she winks and replies that he could have easily handled it even without her there. Norris tries to crawl away again, but was pinned down again. He turned back with a fearful look at the cold Demon Lord, saying that if he had known beforehand, he wouldn't have come in here. She calmly replied that crying was useless because he was just paying the price for his actions. If he hadn't been so foolish, he wouldn't have lost his divine mandate, and might have survived longer if he had cooperated with his comrades. The former hero began to beg, offering to become her subordinate if she spared his life. She brutally stomped on his back, making him scream in pain, and declared that she had no need for someone like him. She coldly asked him if he was trying to make the Demon Lord's army a joke. She explained to Karna that demons value themselves more than evil, and that's why they band together to seek benefits, achieving goals that individuals cannot. This is the very glue that holds the Demon Lord's army together. Karna wondered what she was trying to tell him. The Demon Lord continued, declaring that a former hero who had abandoned his comrades and no longer had any justice was not even worthy of being killed. Seeing his unconscious comrades, Cecilia told Norris to leave this place immediately, and the terrified man agreed. Cecilia and Karna exchanged a look, after which the boy summoned spirits to lift the former hero, the Holy Knight, and the Master Warrior, and then carry them out of the dungeon. While the man screamed, the assassin remained in the room, as Cecilia explained that they needed to talk to her. The Demon Lord then asked the boy how he felt, and Karna took off his mask. Karna cheerfully told Cecilia that it was satisfying, and he thought that was enough. Then, he declared that he would become a worthy opponent for humanity as Cecilia's subordinate, and that very fact made him rejoice at being able to fight. The Demon Lord looked pleased, saying that from now on she would trust him, which made Karna very excited. News of the hero's defeat and the loss of his divine mandate spread like wildfire. Meanwhile, something sinister appeared in Kalkasan, the land of shadows under the rule of the greedy Demon Lord. One of his subordinates reported on the events that had transpired, causing the army kneeling before him to start murmuring amongst themselves. Sitting on the corpse of a dead dragon, the greedy Demon Lord Dargaz Zalaga assessed the situation. He noted that not only had Cecilia stolen his dungeon, but she had gone a step further and taken down the hero as well. He radiated fury, stood up, and cracked his knuckles, declaring that he would have to have a talk with Cecilia at the Adventurers Guild in the Imperial capital. At the guild, the guildmaster slammed his desk in frustration upon hearing the news of the hero's defeat. He frantically asked his assistant if the report was completely accurate, and she confirmed that it was, revealing that after the hero lost his divine mandate and was branded a covenant breaker, the country had secretly executed him. Both of his comrades were so traumatized they were beyond recovery. Sighing, the guildmaster asked about the mercenaries sent to train to monitor them, and the assistant reported that she might have been captured to be used as a source of information. He feared that information about the country's strongest adventurers had been leaked. However, the woman pointed out that Aisha Alistair was a chosen one and a veteran of many battlefields, possessing the assassin's divine mandate, and she wouldn't betray humanity so easily. The guildmaster noted that they no longer had the resources to rescue her, accepting that she would likely die. This exchange was being observed by a horned spider, perched on the assistant's shoulder. The spider was then retrieved by a demon lurking nearby, who quickly departed to report this information to Cecilia. At Karna's dungeon, the boy realized there was no way to increase the dungeon's difficulty any further, as the creation magic he could use was limited. Karna was determined to protect this place for Cecilia, though the old man tried to reassure him, arguing that if the dungeon had already defeated the hero, that should be enough. However, Karna countered that he only managed to drive them away because he caught them off guard. He feared that veteran adventurers and the Demon King's army could easily break through with the current preparations. Their conversation was interrupted by the return of the field supervisor. The giant dragon emerged from a magic circle. He reported that the number of facilities and traps the boy could create with his creation magic was too limited, prompting Karna to admit he still had much to learn. The supervisor went on to explain that the creation magic of the Necromancer School was mainly for fortifying bases and controlling the undead, not for defending a labyrinth. He noted that the facilities shouldn't be run at their limits, and advised Karna to devise an efficient operational plan before leaving. Karna declared that he had an idea but needed more experience to succeed, and wanted the opinion of a veteran who understood adventurers. Putting on his helmet, the boy rose from his cushion and headed to the dungeon to ask the assassin for advice. which the old man approved of. In the dungeon, the assassin restlessly cursed her captors, asking if this was how they treated prisoners. Surrounded by cute cats, she fretted, wondering if they really believed these creatures would make her let her guard down. A cat meowed before jumping onto her lap, and she struggled to resist its cuteness as it stood on its hind legs. She noticed her food was just bread and soup, but at least it was human food. She wondered if these cats were monsters, but then found herself unable to resist their charm. Aisha continued to resist until a cat jumped onto the floor and rolled onto its back for her to play with. Despite a final attempt at resistance, she finally gave in, happily rubbing its belly. She buried her face in its soft fur, realizing it smelled like sunshine and telling herself she had to keep it a secret that she was a die-hard cat lover. She wondered how they found out. Karna appeared behind the bars, apologizing to her for it, and explaining they had to read her soul while she was unconscious. Stunned, she realized he was the demon from before. Karna explained that his necromancy skill, soul reading, allowed him to gather a person's name, background, and preferences. The assassin shuddered, realizing he was overwhelmingly powerful, despite his inexperience. Karna could still defeat the hero, and might even be on par with the Demon King, which made the assassin wonder why he was on the front lines between demons and humans. Karna then listed all the information he knew about her, including her profession as an assassin and her item mastery skill. And that in her spare time, she took care of the stray cats in the capital. Aisha blushed in embarrassment, covering her face and apologizing for being a cat lover. She hugged a cat tightly, declaring that, unlike humans, cats aren't two-faced and wouldn't let her down. Karna thought this was cute and that it was nothing for her to be ashamed of. But she bluntly replied that even if he could control the cats, that didn't help her. She declared that she wouldn't reveal any information, and if he was going to kill her, he should just do it. As she was a mercenary loyal to her master and was prepared to sacrifice her life. Karna understood that and proceeded to take off his helmet, causing Aisha to scream in confusion. Aisha looked at Karna, surprised to see a human serving the demon lord. The boy walked into the cell with an innocent look, declaring that the demon lord's army had better pay and benefits. The assassin was surprised, wondering if that was the reason he had turned his back on humanity, before realizing with disappointment who he really was. Karna was surprised that she recognized him, and Aisha explained that she was the one who had recommended him to the hero, because she had noticed his skills and believed he would be very useful. She regretted that he had been fired before she rejoined the party. Aisha then asked if he had joined the demon lord's army because he held a grudge against the hero. But Karna denied it, saying he didn't have time to bother with revenge and had joined purely for business reasons. Aisha wasn't convinced, so to reassure her, Karna gave her the truth of OST, a jewel that would glow red when it detected a lie, so she could clearly see the truth in his words. She hesitantly took it and examined the jewel. And when Karna repeated his reason for attacking the hero's party, Aisha was surprised to confirm that Karna was actually telling the truth. He went on to say that although it wasn't easy, after being fired, he now really enjoys working with Cecilia and has learned a lot. Karna explained that demon and human cultures are very different. In that for demons, strength is everything, whether it's wealth, power, skill, or charm. The demon's strict social system is based on strength, and appearance is also important to display that strength. Demon nobility likes to dress like human nobility, and being cute is considered a weakness. He revealed that the cats in Aisha's cell were the weakest species to demons, and they are often used for training or as food. Karna held a demon cat in front of the astonished girl and cuddled it. Aisha feared a trap, believing Karna would exploit her love of cats to extract information about humanity, but she couldn't resist the cat's cuteness. Karna explained that the minds of demons and humans differ mainly in that demons do not value cuteness. He went on to explain that they were on the front lines between demons and humans, a place where knights and adventurers often came to attack. To deal with intruders without killing them and taking their magical energy, Karna planned to use the cats to draw in enemies who would be difficult to defeat and prevent them from passing through. Aisha angrily asked if he had any hesitation about betraying humanity, but Karna asserted that the difference between humans and demons was mostly just cultural. Horrified, Aisha realized that the hero had unwittingly turned a powerful ally into an enemy of humanity without a second thought. Karna then told Aisha that he needed an advisor who understood adventurers to help him build his dungeon, and offered her a contract worth 1 million gold, with an annual salary of 10 million gold, to become his subordinate, explaining that the money would be paid by Cecilia. Aisha reluctantly admitted that the salary was double her current one, and when Karna added command over the demon cat horde, she immediately seized the opportunity, much to Karna's delight. She hugged a cat to her chest, while coldly telling herself that she couldn't refuse right then, fearing the boy would kill her if he couldn't make her his subordinate. Aisha wondered if she should pretend to be his subordinate to take the opportunity to assassinate him, thinking about the 100 million gold bounty for eliminating the 7 demon lords, and speculating that there must surely be a worthy bounty on Karna as well. The old man then suggested to Karna that he should show Aisha the current state of the dungeon. Karna explained that he hadn't finished it before the hero appeared. Aisha remarked that even though the dungeon was incomplete, it was still a formidable challenge, admitting that she could have made it through if she hadn't been stingy with her valuable items. Even so, Karna worried that humanity still had many powerful figures. But inwardly, the assassin realized that was no longer the case. The once glorious heroes had now weakened, while Karna grew stronger over time and was now nearly unbeatable by humans. The old man suggested that they take a walk around the dungeon, and Karna happily agreed, telling Aisha to come along. He also reasoned that she needed to know exactly what she was up against, especially if she intended to assassinate someone. Aisha coldly agreed. Karna began the dungeon tour at the entrance, introducing her to the undead dragon he had stationed as a gatekeeper. Aisha was horrified by the massive monster, while Karna explained that he had persuaded the soul of an earth dragon he had once defeated to become undead, promising to resurrect it if it killed enough enemies. The old man remarked that the dragon might be a bit unreliable, and it began to growl at Aisha, until Karna calmed it down, instructing it to only repel intruders as best it could to conserve its limited magical energy. Aisha wasn't very impressed by that, so Karna led her to the dungeon's trap area. As she walked along the graveyard path, she noticed that they weren't getting anywhere. Karna explained that he had manipulated space and time to create an endless road, which could trap intruders for up to a century. He described it as just a little trap, much to Aisha's disappointment. The old man simply stated that one could escape the trap using teleportation magic, and that this might only slow down the hero for about 5 minutes. The assassin was stunned by these speculations, realizing that there wasn't a single great sage left who could use teleportation magic. She felt her stomach clench as she realized this dungeon was nearly impenetrable. Karna cheerfully led Aisha to the next traps, and after a few hours they arrived at the place where the hero had been defeated. The boy embarrassedly admitted that the dungeon still had many flaws, which made Aisha furious, criticizing that the difficulty wasn't properly adjusted, describing the place as a half-assed version of hell. Karna enthusiastically declared that you needed to make it stronger to prevent anyone from getting in. However, Aisha argued that having a dragon right at the start of the dungeon was a mistake, because it would make anyone run away before even trying to enter. She said the dragon was radiating too much killing intent. When the gate opened, a giant dragon appeared, commenting on Aisha's stubbornness and saying it was a disgrace for an engineer not to follow the user's request. It asked the girl for suggestions on how to start improving the dungeon. Aisha was overwhelmed by the dragon's presence, feeling that it might be an ancient dragon. The creature confirmed this, saying that now it was just a ghost. Karna cheerfully introduced the ghost dragon as declaring that he was very skilled and had helped him set traps. The old man laughed heartily as he revealed that it was the ancestor of all dragons, an ancient god he had fought long ago. Karna naively said that he had no idea, leaving Aisha in shock. The assassin recalled the world's history, when dragons once ruled and spread terror among humanity, until the outer gods appeared, defeated the dragons and reclaimed the land, and became the leaders of humanity. After that, the true gods chose one among the humans, turned him into a hero, to fight and subdue the outer gods. The ancestor of the dragons, declared that he no longer wanted to be involved in the world's affairs, simply a spirit obeying Karna because he had been freed by him. Karna wondered if it was difficult for to talk to them in his giant true form. The dragon agreed, and transformed into a small, winged spirit. Seeing Karna playing with this spirit, Aisha was horrified by the absolute power of Cecilia's followers, realizing that humanity couldn't possibly win against them. She was suddenly terrified that they were only holding back because they believed someone stronger was on the other side. But in reality, no one could stand against them. Aisha worried that, once they learned the truth, Cecilia might just order Karna to wipe out humanity. She covered her face in horror as she imagined that scenario. Karna noticed Aisha's worried expression, but she quickly deflected, saying she was just thinking about the dungeon. The assassin then suggested that he should restrain his killing intent, responding to his concern about letting enemies slip through. She proposed that high-level adventurers might pass through unhindered, though in her heart she knew this wasn't necessarily true. Aisha then suggested that he should design the areas around the entrance and the middle of the dungeon, at a low level, to lure in weaker humans and steal their magical energy. She claimed this advice was based on her own experience. Karna suddenly realized that he needed to build a dungeon, not a fortress. The old man praised her advice, and asked Aisha to draw up a detailed proposal for future improvements. Aisha was well aware that the world could be destroyed if Karna discovered humanity's weakness. Although she didn't much care for the royalty, the church, and the knights who had once looked down on her, she worried for her friends in the capital slums and the stray cats she cared for. She couldn't let them face annihilation. Karna enthusiastically discussed improvements for the dungeon with her and the old man, until he once again noticed Aisha's worried expression. When he asked what was wrong, Aisha skillfully concealed it, but inwardly she resolved to infiltrate the Demon Lord's army to prevent them from discovering humanity's weakness. 1 month after the dungeon was renovated, a party of adventurers was fighting skeleton soldiers near the entrance of the Dungeon of the Eternal Coffin. Although one member of the party was taken down, the others defeated the monsters and received their reward. One party member remarked that this was the place where the hero was defeated, and it was easier than he'd expected. He also noticed that every time they defeated a monster, a treasure chest appeared. Their injured comrade cried out for help, but instead of helping, a party member with a wicked smile finished him off. The axe-wielding teammate looked skeptical, but the man replied that they don't need weaklings and can always recruit replacements. The other agreed, and the party pressed onward. They had been informed that there was an undead dragon guarding the entrance and they would face many traps, but the enemies before that would be weak, so they continued deeper into the dungeon for more loot. In response to the hero's party being defeated, the Adventurers Guild classified the Dungeon of the Eternal Coffin as a first-class danger zone, warning adventurers to stay away. However, some ignored these warnings and flocked to the dungeon, hoping for treasure and fame. They were confronted by the undead dragon at the gate, but seeing that the enemies around the dungeon were quite weak, many adventurers continued to pour in, seeking safe treasures. At the great underground palace of La Rurale, Cecilia had summoned her executive council, which included the orc chieftain, the succubus matriarch, Mammon, and Belphegor. Mammon was furious, demanding an explanation for the situation. He called Belphegor a coward after he tried to calm things down, but was cut off with a reminder of his defeat at the hands of Karna. Meanwhile, Cecilia winked at the masked boy as he poured her tea, made from his grandmother's recipe. The Demon Lord invited everyone to enjoy the tea, but Mammon slammed the table, criticizing her for seizing another Demon Lord's property and giving it to some newcomer of unknown origin. Mammon explained that after her move, the Greed faction was left with no dungeons, forced to survive on the residual magical energy from their predecessors. He asked if Cecilia was even aware of this crisis. Cecilia compared the situation to being trapped at home with no fields or work, noting that they were about to reach their limit. Mammon adamantly demanded immediate action, pointing out that while they were benefiting from the dungeon's energy supply, they weren't draining the adventurers' magic, and were instead being robbed of their gold and coins. He demanded that Cecilia take responsibility for this. However, Cecilia calmly asked Karna if they were truly in a financial crisis, and he explained that this was just the initial investment, made after consulting a financial advisor. The doors opened as Karna summoned the advisor, and Aisha walked in, wearing a demon mask to hide her human identity. Karna asked Aisha to explain the new dungeon to the executive council. The orc chieftain remarked that she smelled human, but the succubus matriarch pointed out that there was no way Cecilia would bring a human into the kingdom, and this was strongly supported by Belphegor. Mammon found Belphegor's fawning over the newcomers unbearable to watch, but he ultimately and reluctantly admitted that Karna was strong, even if he didn't truly acknowledge that strength. However, Mammon remained firm, insisting that fighting alone would not bring peace, and he vowed to uncover any lies from the newcomer. Angrily, he demanded they present their plan. Aisha quickly observed Mammon, noticing his tendency to pressure and manipulate others, surprised that even demons acted this way. Meanwhile, Cecilia chuckled, telling Karna that this was going to be fun, which made Aisha realize how close the two of them were before she began the briefing. Pulling out the dungeon core, Aisha projected footage of the Dungeon of the Eternal Coffin's true appearance, showing the two previous adventurers venturing deeper inside. The axe-wielding warrior suggested they turn back, But his companion insisted on going just a little further to find the final chest. They saw a door at the end of the path and smiled at each other, believing it was the dungeon's final door. They kicked the door in violently and entered an empty vault, startling a demon cat inside. The axe-wielding warrior found the cat cute, ignoring his partner's warning, and petted the creature. The other adventurer also couldn't resist the cat's cuteness, but when he came to his senses, he saw other demon cats approaching. He tried to snap his friend out of it, but to no avail. As he prepared to deal with the cats, his companion held him back. Suddenly, the cats turned vicious, quickly overwhelming the two adventurers and allowing the spirits to drain their magical energy. After collecting the treasure the adventurers were carrying, the demon cats wiped their memories, then dragged them through the door and out of the dungeon. Aisha then disconnected the footage and explained to the astonished executive council that after the renovations, the fake adventurers were lured by gold and items to spread rumors that the area was profitable. By using weak monsters, they could reduce magic consumption since the defeated adventurers weren't killed, but merely had their items confiscated. Karna explained that the spirits could alter human minds and possess them. Once the adventurers are defeated by the demon cats, their memories would be erased, and the cycle could be repeated, continuously draining magic power from them over and over again. The members of the executive council were all shocked by this plan, with Belphegor remarking that the system was cruel. Karna asserted that they could continue to extract magic power from the adventurers multiple times, but Mammon was skeptical and asked if the fake adventurers would become suspicious if he made a mistake. Aisha explained that the adventurers wouldn't realize their loot was gone after their memories were erased, and they would keep coming back, just like a gambling addict returning to a casino. Cecilia understood, realizing it was all about manipulating the human mind. Aisha went on to explain that they wouldn't be taking anyone's life, and that even weak souls could become a powerful source of energy if drained repeatedly. The zombie dragon acted as a boundary between the safe and dangerous zones for the adventurers. Aisha continued, explaining that the fake adventurers would get the impression that they were safe as long as they didn't go too deep, and that even if they were defeated, they wouldn't die. Seeing the weak enemies, they would become confident in their abilities and would return many times, thereby increasing the dungeon's profits. Karna then presented the projected result to the executive council, leaving Mammon in disbelief. The boy explained that once the rumors spread among the humans, the dungeon would become incredibly profitable. He thanked Aisha, noting that the traps he'd created before consumed a lot of magic power because he thought strong enemies would attack with pure strength, which made the dungeon unprofitable. Aisha then lied that humanity's main forces were currently focused on the other demon lords, and they didn't have enough resources to deal with Karna. The orc chief and the succubus matriarch immediately praised Cecilia for thinking so far ahead, but Mammon still expressed his doubts, pointing out that there was no way weak monsters like cats could use charm magic. He wondered what trick they were using to achieve it. Aisha tried to dodge the question, saying it was a trade secret. However, Mammon suggested they might have used precious items or materials from the castle to achieve this, which made Cecilia furious. She asked if he was doubting her, insisting that she hadn't taken any items from the castle, or received any direct help from there, which Karna eagerly confirmed. Karna then offered to explain, and as Aisha showed more footage, the boy said that the monster cats were summoned by demons, and they were the lowest tier monsters because their ability scores were only on par with ordinary animals. He explained that, despite often being used as test subjects or an emergency food source and considered worthless, the cats still had a hidden power. Turning to the succubus matriarch, Karna asked what the requirement for using charm magic was. She replied, while caressing her chest, remarking that the more beautiful and alluring one is to the opposite sex, the higher the chance of success. The flustered boy thanked her and commented that charm wasn't solely dependent on gender. Meanwhile, both Karna and Belphegor continued to stare at the pouting succubus. Cecilia stood up and pulled Karna closer, remarking that his charm was effective on humans, but wondered why the monster cats could use charm magic. Mammon irritably told Cecilia to save the flirting for later, while Karna declared that it was all thanks to the monster cats. Then he summoned several heart-shaped spirits, which immediately made all the demons present see Karna as an incredibly cute creature. Mammon, Succubus, and Belphegor all became flustered, clutching their private parts in embarrassment and arousal, unable to resist the charm. Cecilia observed the situation with a serious expression, while the demons continued to be tempted and aroused by the spirits, holding their bodies tightly as they grew restless. Aisha remarked that these spirits belonged to prostitutes, dancers, and the like, and could only be controlled by an extremely skilled necromancer. This ability powerfully targets the aura of inferiority, affecting a creature's psyche and causing them to lose control if they can't resist. The assassin was surprised that it even worked on a succubus, a species thought to be immune to such effects. Aisha noted with amusement that it was funny how everyone saw those monsters as weak, fooled by their low rank. The succubus slapped herself to partially break free from the spell's influence, and asked why Aisha seemed unaffected. Aisha explained that the effect could be countered with the right information, but without precautions, even the top commanders of the Demon King's army could fall for it. The succubus blushed, admitting that erotic spirits were very hard to find, because they were the handmaidens of the Dark Mother Goddess, the ancestor of the succubi. Karna innocently explained that he had asked for their help, and borrowed them, revealing that these spirits used to work at their sister's tomb, which was next to his grandparents' farm. They had happily agreed to join him on his quest. The spirits then expressed their joy about their new job, making the succubus feel that this was absurd and unbelievable. Cecilia then hugged Karna, thinking to herself that the woman living in the tomb must be Istasha, the true ancestor of the succubi, which meant Karna was actually even stronger than her and the succubus matriarch. Mammon raged, wondering how such a weak monster could have the power to affect high-ranking members of the Demon King's army. Belphegor took the chance to mock him for his awkward posture, but then realized he was in the same situation, clutching his own private parts in embarrassment. The orc leader, flustered and worried, suggested they should just go with the flow, because they couldn't possibly fight someone as powerful as Karna. Meanwhile, the succubus matriarch wondered what the spirits had said about Karna, then turned to answer Mammon's question. Karna explained that having an erotic spirit possess a cat allows it to use charm magic. The combination of charm magic and a cat's natural cuteness creates an extremely powerful effect. Karna then recalled the erotic spirits, and Aisha explained that the cats were just being cute and weren't using magic themselves. Erotic spirits are easy to summon, but if the cats continue to use charm magic while possessed, they will soon learn to use the magic on their own. The succubus matriarch realized this would allow the cats to attack humans at a relatively low mana cost, which the orc leader and Belphegor both praised. Belphegor also noted that there must be other low-level monsters with abilities that could be used effectively against humans, and they all applauded the plan. Aisha silently noted that they weren't treating the smaller monsters the same way as the others, simply because Karna was pretending to be one of them. In a flashback, the assassin and Karna meet to discuss the dungeon's renovation a few days before the meeting, and she expresses her frustration at the prospect of using the cats to fight humans. While protectively and affectionately cuddling a cat, Karna observes that Aisha doesn't like the idea of demons attacking the cats, which she confirms. Then she admits that, since you can read my mind, lying is pretty much pointless. She declares her hatred for both humans and demons, explaining that even though he talks about allies like it's a good thing, when their interests are threatened, they often betray each other and argue over petty things. The boy looks at her sadly, realizing that she's been fighting as a mercenary for years without trusting anyone. She explains that despite being blessed with a divine command, she became a mercenary because she needed money to survive on her own. She figures that since people always betray each other and relationships are a hassle, the only thing she wants is to find a cat and treat it like her family. She tells Karna to go ahead and laugh if he thinks that's stupid. Karna begins to tell Aisha about his grandparents and how he works for Cecilia because she acknowledges and rewards him. Aisha suddenly realizes they have more in common than she thought. Gently taking the cat from Aisha's arms, Karna says he wants to make sure she can take care of the things she cares about and is willing to help her with that. He insists that they need to make the cats the best creatures they can be, and that Cecilia would understand, and even the other demons could be convinced. However, they won't know unless they try, which makes Aisha skeptical, and think that humans and demons can't change that easily. Back in the present, Cecilia proposes they stop treating low-level monsters unfairly, suggesting they test their abilities and evaluate them on criteria other than just combat strength. The orc chief and Belphegor speak up in support of her initiative. After some back and forth, the executive committee easily accepts the proposal, leaving Aisha in disbelief. Inside Cecilia's room at the underground palace, Karna is doing his usual chores, cleaning the room, while Aisha and the Demon Lord watch. Cecilia offers to help him, but after Karna politely declines, she remarks that the idea to improve the cats' lives wasn't entirely thanks to her new advisor, then cuddles one of the cats. Aisha silently wonders if the entire organization will really follow the order not to mistreat the low-level monsters. Cecilia explains that orders from the top are absolute. Aisha comments that if this were human politics, things would be much more complicated. But Cecilia replies that she can't know for sure if the demons won't betray her. However, she trusted Karna, and he answered her call, so she wants to believe in the people she trusts. This makes Karna blush. Aisha checks her orb, noticing it isn't glowing, which leaves her unable to be sure if they're telling the truth or if Cecilia is truly sincere. Aisha feels that demons are better than humans who scorned her for being a mercenary. As if reading her thoughts, Cecilia reveals that she sent a spy to the imperial capital to gather information. She reassures Karna that humanity won't be sending any elite forces to destroy them right now, since the hero has been executed. Cecilia also informs Aisha that the Adventurers Guild has declared her dead. Aisha is stunned by this news, and a worried Karna tries to comfort her, saying that if she wishes, anyone special to her can be brought to her side. He looks to Cecilia for confirmation. The Demon Lord cheerfully stands up and agrees, saying she'll allow it once Karna is recognized as a demon general, and that she's counting on Aisha's support. The assassin is terrified of Cecilia, realizing the Demon Lord isn't doing these things just to win her trust. However, Aisha brushes it all off, saying she prefers cats to humans. Not fooled by that answer, the Demon Lord asks if Aisha is worried that they'll kill the other humans. Aisha asserts that humans are always fighting and live by the rule of survival of the fittest. Cecilia praises Aisha's metaphor, and the assassin immediately asks her about the goal of taking a human into the demon ranks and paying them so much, seemingly to cause chaos in the demon world. The Demon Lord becomes flustered by this question and hesitates to answer, surprising Aisha, who realizes she isn't lying. Cecilia then shyly declares that she's interested in human culture, especially love, romance, and marriage, in order to understand the magical link between the life of a human child and a demon child. She bashfully tells Karna that she wants to try doing something romantic, causing the boy to cry out in embarrassment and surprise. Elsewhere in the Grand Palace, a subordinate reports to Mammon that Karna is indeed human, after prying the information from Belphegor's lackeys. He confirms that the boy is a necromancer and asks Mammon what he thinks of this. Mammon reacts with a furious rage, kicking over Belphegor's subordinates. Mammon orders a message be sent to Dargaz, the Lord of Greed, inviting him to the underground palace, with a treacherous smile full of ill intent. Meanwhile, Cecilia asks Karna what she should do about her desire. Aisha, annoyed, leaves the room despite the flustered boy's pleas for her to stay, stressing that love is a recipe for trouble for an adventurer, then shuts the door, leaving Karna and Cecilia alone. Cecilia approaches the panicked boy and declares that this is just like what she's read in her novels. She says they can go on a date and wonders what they should do after that. Karna awkwardly says that he's never been on a date before and there were no girls his age where he grew up. Even if there were, he saw them as sisters, not romantic interests. Cecilia takes his hand, delighted that this is a first time for both of them. She says she doesn't know what to do and that being in love is really hard. Karna pulls his hand back and worriedly asks if she doesn't find this a little strange because demons rarely show affection in public and don't care much for love. Karna still doesn't understand why, and Cecilia sighs, admitting that love is a foreign concept to demons, though she recalls that some demons, like Marion, do have children. After having a realization, Cecilia cheerfully takes Karna's hand and leads him off to visit some married demons. They arrive at the residential area of the Orc tribe, located outside the castle. Karna remarks that the area looks just like a human city, while the old man notices the furs and leather goods being sold, noting that orcs are skilled craftsmen. The orc chieftain, surprised by their arrival, welcoming them into the village. Cecilia explained that she was just doing a quick inspection and that Karna was still learning about everything. She asked the orc chief to explain the orc race to Karna. Karna bowed his head after Cecilia made the request. But the flustered orc demon quickly told him to raise his head, explaining that orcs were considered low-level demons, and other orcs might think he was a fool for bowing to them. Karna pointed out that they were no different from other demons, which astonished the orc chief. Cecilia also commented on the difference in magical power between Belphegor and the orcs, making the chief realize how weak their own magic was. The old man reminded Karna that they only defeated Belphegor thanks to his blessing. However, the Demon Lord thought to himself that it was actually a complete rout, because Nodens and Vorvados possessed an immense amount of magical power. The orc chief then explained that power was the main factor that separated low-level and high-level demons, revealing that orcs don't get nourishment from magical power like other demons, but instead eat food just like humans. He was about to say something more, when he was suddenly startled by a voice telling him to get lunch ready. A woman with pig-like ears glared at him, but quickly relented when the chief explained that Cecilia was present. She then apologized and made excuses for her husband's absent-mindedness, so Cecilia apologized for the interruption and asked to borrow the woman's husband. She accepted, but before leaving she sternly warned the orc chief that he was safe. For now. The terrified orc chief remarked that half-human wives were scary, then explained that orcs can't create offspring with magic, and can only reproduce with humans or half-human female orcs. Karna recalled that orcs used to kidnap human women to mate, but the last raid had happened over 100 years ago. The orc chief sadly admitted that they had been living in poverty under Cecilia's protection, as goblins and ogres had taken over their territory. Due to the lack of human women, he had to live with ill-tempered orc girls. The orc chief explained that the orc race was created when otherworldly gods chose some pigs and granted them magic, which is why orcs consume pork to gain a small amount of magic from it. Nodin suddenly remembered this, recalling that the orcs of his era were an aggressive race with high vitality, created to explore new lands. Just then, the orc chief's children ran up, crying that they wanted lunch, and their mother yelled at them for making a scene in front of the demon lord. The orc chief then asked for permission to prepare a meal for his children, and Cecilia agreed, while also asking to see how they lived. The orc chief was surprised by this request, but agreed nonetheless, and led Cecilia and Karna to his home. Inside the chief's house, Karna noticed a smell like that of rotting corpses, while Cecilia praised the pleasant aroma coming from the poison swamp behind the house. The demon lord looked around curiously, casually remarking that they must all sleep in one room to strengthen their family bond, while the orc chief explained that their living space was just too cramped. Karna apologized for Cecilia's comments. The orc chief then excused himself to prepare the meal, and Karna expressed his curiosity about orc food, happily accepting the offer to try some. After a moment, he served a foul-smelling dish of salted carrion meat and withered vegetables, which made the children drool while Cecilia and Karna stared at the food in shock. The old man remarked that it seemed the orcs couldn't preserve food properly, and even though their bodies could handle it, Karna would likely get food poisoning. The orc chief explained that they usually foraged for vegetables and monster carcasses outside the dungeon, but their food was just pig feed compared to what high-ranking demons consumed. He sighed, saying that fresh meat and vegetables were just a distant dream, and that he longed to be able to feed his child a proper meal just once. Hearing this, Karna immediately offered to help. He used his state restoration power to turn back time, returning the food to its fresh state. The meal quickly transformed into juicy meat, savory salt, and crisp vegetables. The entire orc tribe was shocked by this. Cecilia remarked that this was an application of the time reversal magic Karna had used before. Karna shyly said it was just one of the basic spells of time manipulation. However, inwardly, Cecilia thought that even the greatest mages would bow before Karna to learn this kind of magic, silently realizing that the boy was truly on a completely different level. Nodens and Vorvados then asked Karna, the necromancer, to lend them some of his magical power, and Cecilia permitted it, telling the boy to go right ahead. As the group headed outside, Karna lent his magical power to the outer gods, and they transformed back into their true forms, leaving the orc chief and his family stunned by their terrifying appearances and immense magical power. Upon reaching the poison swamp, the gods decided to combine their powers using ancient magic to revive the land. A brilliant light shone down, and the ground trembled as the land was healed. Greenery began to sprout from the barren soil, transforming the area into a lush meadow, blessed by the protection of the earth and divine light. This would allow the orc tribe to cultivate vegetables. Karna wondered why they didn't use this magic on his grandparents' farm, but the old man explained that the tomb was too heavily cursed to be purified. The orc villagers quickly gathered, amazed at the sight of crops sprouting from the earth. Vorvados told the orc chief that they must build a proper farm to continue cultivating the land. The chief, still in shock, asked Cecilia if she would grant them a farm. Smiling, the demon lord declared that these lands were under her castle's rule, and it would be beneficial if the orcs were well fed and worked with more energy. The orc chief announced to his family and people that from now on, they could eat as many vegetables as they wanted, leaving everyone astonished and ecstatic. They rushed over to Karna, calling him their savior and tossing him into the air. They gave 3 cheers in unison to thank the demon lord and hailed Karna as a new demon general. Seeing the orc chief's family move to tears, and Karna being cheered on so enthusiastically, Cecilia smiled, confirming that he was indeed the person she believed him to be. Ever since their time in the underground palace, feeling satisfied, Cecilia hopped onto her bat after eating her fill at the orc's lavish feast of meat and vegetables. She told Karna that fresh vegetables were full of magical energy, perfect for a demon, and praised him for his contribution. Karna humbly said that it was the old man who had revived the land. But Cecilia noted that he didn't seem to fully grasp how miraculous it was that he had made a pact with Nodens and Vorvados, restoring their powers. She advised him not to be so modest. Cecilia then confessed that ever since they met, her heart had been beating faster than usual. Looking at her romance novels, she wondered if this fluttering in her chest was love, remarking that it felt quite pleasant. Karna admitted that he wasn't sure about it either, but he would do anything he could for her because he wanted her to be happy. He enthusiastically declares that he will try his best with love. Cecilia winks playfully at him, jokingly asking if he's treating love like a part of his job. As the boy awkwardly replies, Cecilia teases him and pulls him onto the bed with her. As they lie next to each other, Cecilia looks at Karna and asks if he knows why demons don't love or get married. She explains that this stems from ancient stories about the old gods. Karna recalls the stories about the origin of the demon race, and the 7 great demon lords who were born after the old gods were destroyed in humanity's rebellion. Cecilia reveals that as the demon lord of lust, she has inherited the legacy seal, which represents the outer god Bastet, a final trump card that has been protected through generations of demon lords of lust. Getting up in the room, Cecilia tells Karna that the power of this seal is on par with an outer god, but she is reaching her limit as the magical power is too great for her soul to bear. She explains that as this power is passed down through generations, it becomes increasingly unstable, and she fears that she might not even be able to produce an heir. However, she believes there is a method that could help her repair the damage from Bastet's soul vessel. Sitting next to Karna on the bed, she holds her stomach and declares that she must create a new demon soul within herself, just like any other normal creature. She wants to create a new life and a new soul unaffected by the destructive seal. Cecilia describes this as being like transferring the contents from a nearly broken vase into a new, undamaged one. She moves closer, rests her head on Karna's shoulder, and gently asks if he loves her. In the realm of the demon lord Cecilia, the existence of a demon who had made a pact with the outer gods and could control them at will had become known, though his name was still unclear. The demons had named him Sabbath, the ruler of the outer gods. In Cecilia's bedroom, the demon lord nearly melts at how cute Karna looks in the armor of a fearsome demon general. However, Karna isn't too happy as he can barely move because the armor is so heavy. Aisha remarks that he would normally be dead after wearing so many cursed items, but Karna insists he doesn't mind the curse as it enhances his power. Cecilia wonders if the armor's size is unsuitable, and Karna suggests taking it off to wear his usual ceremonial attire for the day, to which she happily agrees. Aisha asks Karna if he is going to reveal his name and race, since he is about to join the Demon Lord's army. However, she also notes that this could be troublesome, as Karna's family still lives in the human world. It wouldn't be a problem for him to remain a mysterious demon. Aisha points out that if he lives in the human world, promoting him would be impossible because it would be too suspicious. But she jokes that since Cecilia is the Demon Lord, it doesn't matter. Karna feels that this is great, and immediately Cecilia runs to him, hugs him tightly, and asks if he loves her. The boy nervously hesitates before shyly saying that it's impossible, as he's still a child and isn't sure if he can make Cecilia happy. Cecilia smiles and remarks that perhaps it's still too early for such a relationship. She gently caresses the boy's cheek and whispers in his ear, asking if happiness is something one can receive from others. Cecilia then tells Karna that she believes she will be happy with the person whose hand she chooses to hold, and that this is the conclusion she drew from observing the marriage cultures of humans and orcs. She told him he'd have plenty of time to think about that while serving under her, so they should enjoy themselves a little longer. Karna agreed and they smiled at each other, hand in hand. Just then, Aisha reminded them it was time to go, causing Karna to quickly apologize, while Cecilia complimented him on how cute he looked in his formal attire. As the assassin opened the large gate, the three of them started towards Karna's oath ceremony into the Demon Lord's army. In the castle corridors, a succubus was telling an orc about how excited she was for Sabbath's oath ceremony, while the orc recalled how the newcomer had defeated the demon general Belphegor, despite starting as just a low-level imp. The succubus then remarked that it seemed to be Cecilia and Sabbath's wish for the rookie to start from the lowest rank, and she found that impressive. However, the orc refrained from saying anything disrespectful, knowing Sabbath might be promoted soon. The succubus also noted that the field built for them was, in itself, their promotion. Their conversation was interrupted when Mammon growled from behind, causing them both to turn around in fear. The demon coldly ordered them to get out of the way, his eyes full of menace, making them bow their heads and apologize. As Mammon and his followers passed by, the orc asked the succubus if Mammon was unhappy about Sabbath joining the army. She explained that Mammon used to be second in rank, right after Belphegor, but with Sabbath's rapid rise, he would be surpassed sooner or later. The orc declared that he would stay out of the power struggle happening in the upper ranks, while Mammon continued to walk away angrily, silently warning Karna not to get too cocky and vowing revenge. The large doors slowly opened as Cecilia and Karna entered the grand hall for the oath ceremony, as if it were a wedding. The pair walked down the aisle toward the altar, while a crowd of demons cheered and spirits threw rose petals from above. Belphegor, the orc leader, and the succubus matron all welcomed them, while Aisha watched from a corner, and some demons looked on with contempt. When they reached the altar, a demon priest asked Karna if he would pledge his power, achievements, and territory to Cecilia. The two clasped hands, their marks glowing with power, and Karna swore his loyalty while Cecilia smiled. The oath ceremony was interrupted when an orc guard burst through the gates, frantically informing everyone of an enemy attack. Belphegor turned incredulous, saying that the castle was known only to the demon lord of lust, and it was impossible for them to be attacked there. However, the guard reported that a raiding force, led by a group of ogres, was attacking the castle gate. Everyone braced themselves as the castle shook. Belphegor angrily spread his wings, declaring that he would punish the attackers before flying out through the door. At the castle gate, a giant ogre had broken through the gate with its massive hammer and was advancing, crushing the orcs in its path, while others fled. The guards wondered what had happened to the barrier, and someone remarked that Mammon was responsible for it. The ogre grinned menacingly, preparing to smash 2 more guards with his hammer, but was stopped just in time by Belphegor. The demon general used despair lightning to strike the ogre, causing him to explode. The orcs were astonished by Belphegor's power as he landed in front of them, and summoned his soldiers to hold the breach until reinforcements arrived. The demon general was confident in his performance, noting that he was strong, but that Karna was an anomaly. One of his subordinates called for help to stop the incoming wave of ogres, and Belphegor unleashed the full power of despair lightning to blast the monsters back towards the broken gate. The soldiers cheered until a giant ogre lord holding a massive mace approached. Belphegor used his lightning attack again, creating a huge explosion. But as the dust settled, the ogre lord charged straight at him. Belphegor barely managed to dodge the attack from the giant morning star as it smashed into the spot where he had just been standing. And he grimaced, realizing that at this rate he would soon be defeated. While everyone was discussing the situation, a demon entered the great hall and reported that the main gate had been breached and the enemy was advancing. Although Belphegor was holding his ground, he was outnumbered and would soon be overrun. Cecilia remarked that, in theory, the enemy's advance should be blocked as long as the magic barrier was maintained. But inwardly she wondered how they could have known the castle's location. She briefly considered the possibility that the enemy had bypassed the dungeon, but didn't see that as feasible without an ability from within, like the one Karna had used. Finally, she realized there had to be a traitor in their ranks. Karna asked if the barrier was the one he had destroyed earlier, but Cecilia told him she had repaired it right after, and put Mammon in charge of it while asking a demon to go find him. She wondered if Mammon had simply made a mistake. But for now, she decided to put that aside. She asked Karna to join the battle immediately. The boy agreed, noting that even though the oath ceremony wasn't complete, he was already Cecilia's subordinate, and he would protect her to the very end. Stepping down from the altar, Karna activated his mark and asked Uri to raise the protective barrier. An earth dragon emerged from his shadow, shocking everyone present as it stood on the altar and began to form a spatial barrier. The lines on the ground started to glow and spread outward. Cecilia noticed that the castle was being enveloped by a massive barrier, and the ley lines were being completely controlled. Explained that he had borrowed this power in an emergency, then bowed his head and apologized to Cecilia for overstepping his authority. The demons were astonished by this sight. One of them remarked that this must be a bluff, as it would be impossible for a single individual to erect a barrier that required the power of hundreds of high-ranking demons. Declared that the invasion had been suppressed and the attackers could not escape, with all communication cut off. He solemnly proclaimed this in the name of the Genesis dragon and let out a spine-chilling roar, unleashing his full power, activating all the ley lines. The ley lines extended towards the castle gate, annihilating the entire ogre force outside, and enveloping the whole castle in a magical barrier. The dragon proclaimed that he had partitioned the area with a time-space barrier, cutting the castle off from the outside world and rendering time meaningless. He also explained that everyone would be confined to these grounds for a while. Karna cheerfully thanked the dragon for its help, saying that this was more than enough, while the demons looked on in confusion, as they had never heard of such powerful magic. In the end, they concluded it was best not to mess with this dragon. Karna then turned to Cecilia, saying that it was quite a rush and asked if he did a good job. In response, the demon lord simply patted his head and called him a good boy. Stunning the surrounding demons at the site, the spatial barrier completely protected the castle. Belphegor had succeeded in defeating the ogre lord, but although the barrier had stopped the invasion, he still had to face many other enemies. He challenged fate and tried to use his lightning power one more time, but to no avail. The ogres laughed, realizing the demon general had run out of mana, and they prepared to finish him off for causing so much trouble. Belphegor braced himself for the inevitable, but was suddenly saved by a blast of lightning that sent the ogres flying. He was stunned to find himself still alive, and turned around upon hearing footsteps. Before him were Karna and Nodens, both stepping majestically onto the battlefield. Karna asked him if he was all right, surprising Belphegor to see the boy had come to save him. Nodens grumbled before praising his efforts, saying that he had worked hard as the heir to his mark, and that his opinion of him might have improved. This moved Belphegor, and he thanked Nodens sincerely. Karna and Nodens quickly moved in to take care of the rest. The boy could not forgive the insolence of those who dared to invade Cecilia's castle without permission, and allowed Nodens to unleash his full power. Karna told the ogres to witness the true power of lightning. Nodens used lightning of despair to tear the ground asunder, destroying every enemy in his path, leaving nothing but scorched corpses on the ground. The god nodded, remarking that the outcome was just as he'd expected, and said the battle was an excellent warm-up for his old bones, leaving the surviving ogres trembling in fear. Their spirits renewed, the orc warriors roared in support of Sabbath, and Belphegor turned back to the fray, declaring their goal was to annihilate every enemy that had infiltrated the castle. The orcs let out a battle cry as they, along with the other demons, charged the remaining ogres. And the battle raged on. Sometime later, the doors to the Great Hall suddenly burst open, as an orc announced it was only a matter of time before Sabbath subjugated the invaders and drove them from the castle. Cecilia had anticipated this, having full faith in Karna's ability to succeed, but still wondered how the enemy could have known the castle's location, as not even most of the other 7 demon lords were aware of its existence. She also found the timing of the barrier's failure to be far too convenient, and scanned the crowd, realizing that both Mammon and Aisha were absent, which confirmed her suspicions. Mammon stood on a balcony, watching in disbelief as the battle unfolded outside the castle, witnessing his plan crumble as the ogre army was annihilated. His aide asked him what he was going to do, as Mammon anxiously bit his nails, realizing the ogre army was about to be wiped out and wondering if he'd made a mistake in allying with them. Aisha appeared silently behind him, placing a dagger to his throat and agreeing, saying his mistake was betraying his demon lord. Mammon's aides were startled, realizing she was one of Sabbath's own, but she warned them not to move, or she'd slit their leader's throat. They retorted that only a human would resort to such cowardly tactics. But Aisha shot back that for all their talk of cowardice, they were the ones who had betrayed their master. Mammon was stunned, realizing Aisha had been watching his every move. She pointed out that he was an amateur, since lowering the castle's barrier right before the attack was far too suspicious. Aisha declared that while he might be good at counting money, he was terrible at scheming. And with victory now out of reach, she demanded he surrender on the spot. However, just then, Aisha sensed a presence behind her, and managed to turn just in time, only to be struck and sent flying across the room along with Mammon. Aisha quickly regained her footing, but was immediately grabbed by the throat by an invisible hand, lifting her off the ground. Realizing her enemy was using a stealth skill, she called out, asking if it was an assassin, before trying to stab at her unseen foe, but her sword was caught. The attacker revealed himself, introducing himself as the Lord of Greed, Dargaz Zalaga. Aisha dropped her weapon, while a terrified Mammon adjusted his glasses, as he faced the colossal demon lord. Dargaz asked Mammon if Cecilia was in the castle, and when the cowardly Mammon nodded in agreement, the demon lord broke into a maniacal grin, roaring for the demon lord of lust to wait for him. Dargaz grabbed Isha by the throat, while a fearful Mammon asked if Dargaz had come to help them. Scoffing at the idea, Dargaz declared that he had no need for incompetent underlings, tightening his grip on Aisha's neck and called Mammon pathetic for being defeated by a mere human. Mammon fell to his knees, begging for forgiveness. But Dargaz coldly stated that taking credit for breaking the barrier didn't change the outcome of the battle. He reminded Mammon to know his place. To the shock and confusion of Mammon and his minions, the demon lord of greed revealed that he had come to the castle with his strongest subordinates. The three great demon generals of greed, all of whom were far stronger than the ogres. Karna was on his way to fight in the dungeon, and the enemy was confident they wouldn't lose to a necromancer. Mammon interjected, reminding him that the boy had outer gods serving him. But Demon Lord Dargaz contemptuously dismissed this, claiming that no entities as powerful as outer gods could possibly exist. He also argued that it was impossible for outer gods to follow a necromancer, suggesting they were merely powerful undead. Mammon, agreeing with this logic, declared there was no way a human could possess the power to defeat a demon lord. However, Dargaz warned him not to be careless, as the boy was strong enough to destroy a hero. But he remained confident that his three demon generals would crush Karna. These three generals included the strongest ogre swordsman, who wielded the holy sword of Vorvados, stolen from the humans. The strongest mage and warlock of the ogre clan, forming a perfect combination. Dargaz declared that this time, Karna would surely be annihilated. Meanwhile, Karna faced the three demon generals of greed on the battlefield. The three demon generals introduced themselves. Yantle, the peerless samurai, chosen by the holy sword Vorvados. Sushielai, bearer of the evil eye's mark, the destroyer of all things. And Theoliai, the great sorcerer of soul magic, who bears the mark of ruin. The swordsman Yantle, holding the holy sword, declared that, by his master's command, he would take Karna's life, and unleashed a mountain-cleaving slash, combined with the breath of scorched earth and an instant kill attack from his comrade's evil eye. Karna unleashed Vorvados, allowing the outer god to take control of his staff. Karna used the skill Swallow Flight Flash, unleashing an arcing attack, defeating and knocking back all three demon generals. The ogres quickly collapsed to the ground, the holy sword wobbled in the air, and an enraged Vorvados sat on the chest of the swordsman Yantle, whose entire body was scorched and tattered. The two remaining demon generals bowed their heads, crying and apologizing to Karna, while the furious outer god realized the sword was his own. Vorvados began punching the swordsman's head with flaming fists, clutching the sword. Karna recognized it as identical to the toy Vorvados had given him to learn swordsmanship, and declared that the gaudy decorations on it made him sick. Vorvados angrily asked the ogre swordsman if he was the one who had modified the sword, but the swordsman burst into tears, swearing he wasn't the one who did it, and that the sword was already like that when Dargaz gave it to him. The outer god grabbed his head, his flesh sizzling as it tested the truth of his words. From a distance, Belphegor watched, amazed that Karna could defeat three demon generals with a single blow. The scorched swordsman wept, begging for his life and promising to tell them anything they wanted to know if they spared him. Karna asked if their main force consisted only of those present, and the ogre confirmed they were tasked with a frontal assault, while their demon lord slipped through a gap in the defensive barrier to assassinate Cecilia. Karna was shocked to hear this, realizing the demon lord of lust was in grave danger. Karna angrily demanded the demon general explain the assassination plot, and in desperation the swordsman explained that wars between demon lords would continue until one's soul was taken and destroyed. Therefore, to achieve victory, it was necessary to kill the opposing demon lord before they could escape. Vorvados then suggested Karna hurry back to help Cecilia, and the boy agreed, leaving Belphegor to handle the current situation. The demon general eagerly accepted the task. The ogres realized the gravity of the situation as their generals were defeated, and began to panic, looking for a way to escape. However, with the barrier blocking their exit, they desperately tried to break into the castle. Karna realized the situation was getting out of control and knew he couldn't let any more ogres enter the castle. As one of the demons pleaded with Karna and Belphegor for help, Belphegor assured him that everything would be taken care of, and Karna agreed but decided to offer some extra assistance. Karna used his magic to summon, causing the dead ogres to rise as undead. The demon general Belphegor was shocked at the sight, but Karna simply stated that he could create zombies as long as there were corpses. And of course, the fresher the better. Belphegor found this utterly revolting and watched in amazement as the resurrected ogre lord fought against its former comrades. Belphegor told Karna to leave as things would be fine here, and Karna summoned the spirits to carry him back to the castle. Meanwhile, inside the castle, Mammon offered to lead Dargaz to Cecilia and asked the demon lord of greed what he would do with Aisha, whom he was still choking. Dargaz coldly replied that he would have his fun with her for a while and then toss her aside. Aisha, still being choked, profiled her attacker, realizing he was the ruler of the Lukajan wilds and the lord of the pillaging orc and goblin tribes, who moved from place to place raiding human lands. Additionally, he had 3 demon generals under his command, with power comparable to a hero's. Aisha understood that if Dargaz won, humanity would suffer countless casualties, and that siding with Cecilia and Karna was a much better option. Thinking fast, she dropped an object that emitted a brilliant flash of light, temporarily blinding everyone present. Seizing the opportunity, Aisha landed a kick straight to Dargaz's jaw and leaped back, throwing a smoke bomb to cover her movement. Unfazed, however, the demon lord Dargaz unleashed a sonic cut attack that tore through the smoke screen, narrowly missing Aisha, but slicing a nearby demon in half. Aisha quickly recognized the attack. She had previously thought he was an assassin due to his stealth skills, but now she knew that only the most exceptional warriors or fighters could use Sonic Cut. She wondered if he possessed 2 marks. Dargaz then unleashed a cyclone attack, a move only a wind spirit magic wielder could use. Unable to withstand the force of the attack, Aisha was thrown back, slamming hard against the wall. The Demon King smirked, remarking that she had caused him quite a bit of trouble and praising her for taking him by surprise. He picked up the item she had used, recognizing that it wasn't anything new, but speculated it must have been enhanced by the mark of a gifted individual. Dargaz then declared his desire to possess such a rare item, and he seized Aisha, ripping away her clothes in an effort to find her mark, his eyes gleaming with lust and greed.